Everyone is freaking out about how new the new Legend of Zelda looks. When Al-Numa said that the next Zelda would be open world, most of us thought it was a cool idea, but I don't think anyone expected the breadth of content that we're seeing in Breath of the Wild. Resource gathering, crafting mechanics, sneaking up on enemy encampments, there's a ton to do in this world. And beyond all those diversions, this iteration of Hyrule just looks like it's going to be a ton of fun to play around in. There's a lot of variety just in how you traverse the world, racing across the fields on horseback, surfing on your shield, gliding through the sky, and crossing chasms by chopping down trees all look incredibly fun. This could well be one of the best sandbox games ever made. For a lot of Zelda fans, that's pretty weird, but it's exciting too. For years, we've been clamoring for Nintendo to shake up the formula, but we don't want to lose sight of the spirit of these games, the essence of what makes Zelda, Zelda. Breath of the Wild looks like it will deliver where the attempted shakeups like Skyward Sword mostly failed. This looks like the shot in the arm that the series desperately needed, and it seems like the whole internet is buzzing about how different this new Zelda is. But is it really? If you're a longtime fan of Zelda, no, think longer, yeah, if you played the series before it went 3D, then Breath of the Wild will probably feel weirdly familiar to you. That's because for the first time in 2 decades, a mainline Zelda title is returning to systemic game design. You might be wondering what those words mean, unless you got caught up in the watch_dogs marketing hype, in which case you probably think it's shorthand for brazen lies. A systemic game, as the name suggests, is a game where the player experience emerges organically based on mechanics and systems set in place by the developer. This stands in contrast to a scripted game, where the moment-to-moment experience is largely driven by events tied to invisible triggers that developers put into their levels. The first Legend of Zelda was almost entirely systemic. Level design largely consisted of rooms with varying obstacle layouts and enemy combinations that naturally presented different challenges based on how the combat worked and how their AI was set up. Combat was a dance of positioning and resource management. You had to constantly be aware of your hitbox as well as that of your enemies, understand how to use your shield to mitigate danger, and use your items strategically if you wanted to emerge from battle victorious. You had to explore and understand the game's systems to advance, and the same went for its world. There was a set sequence of dungeons to clear, but actually finding them, along with the secrets littered around the map, was down to you, and you could break that sequence pretty easily if you knew what you were doing. The game's script was more of a guideline. In Zelda 2, well, we don't talk about Zelda 2, but A Link to the Past took this systemic design and expanded on it, with new enemy types, new weapons, more fluid movement for Link, and the powerful but risky to use spin attack for crowd control. But it also introduced more story elements and did a lot of world building. And when the time came to bring the series into 3D, Nintendo decided that that was the most important part. From the Ocarina of Time onward, The Legend of Zelda has been primarily scripted. Dungeons are more built around puzzles, set pieces, and quirky boss battles than they are a series of interesting combat encounters. There were layers added to the combat system, but as much bigger YouTubers than I have pointed out, pretty much every encounter boils down to lock on and wait to see their weak point. And of course, it had a much more restrictive structure. In the very first area, you were faced with doors that you couldn't go through until you did another thing somewhere else to advance the plot. And pretty much every area in the game was built like that. I mean, look at the game's titular time-hopping mechanic. It's often compared to the Dark and Light worlds from Link to the Past, but you can jump between those at any time with the Magic Mirror, a mechanic often incorporated into puzzles. In Ocarina, you can only switch world states in one place, and as such, time travel mainly exists to facilitate asset recycling. It's not like the systemic design went away. There are still plenty of cool mechanics to play around with in Ocarina, but it definitely stopped being the focus. And that's the chief complaint of the crowd that says A Link to the Past is the better Zelda. It's a lot truer to what made the original game interesting. The systemic aspects of Zelda's design have moved in and out of prominence ever since then. Majora's Mask turned the scripting itself into a gameplay system that you could manipulate through time travel, and its boss fights had more going on mechanically than just pattern gimmicks, which was kind of a necessity since you had to fight them multiple times, although regular enemies were still plenty boring. Wind Waker took the 3D combat system in a solid new direction by adding dodge rolls, parrying, positioning, and the ability to pick up enemy weapons that behave differently from Link's sword. It also had a big, sandboxy world that was fun to explore, if a little barren. It still followed a story with lots of fixed gameplay beats and scripting gates, but it was probably the closest that 3D Zelda had gotten to the 2D games, which, it's worth noting, continued to be made on handhelds and continued to satisfy old-school fans, even if they were spin-offs. But Wind Waker was unfairly criticized for its visuals, and Majora's Mask was a little too demanding and weird for a lot of Ocarina's fans. Those games didn't sell quite as well, and Nintendo faced pressure to recreate Ocarina's success, so the series got a hell of a lot more scripted from there. Twilight Princess is lambasted for its overlong tutorial, but even once you're out of there, almost every step of your journey boils down to finding a way out of whatever area you're currently stuck in. And most of the new items in the game, in particular the double claw shots and spinner, were designed entirely around letting Link move along new kinds of preset pathways. This design trend was bucked in the more open Snow Peak Ruins, which is one of the best designed dungeons in the series and coincidentally contains the ball and chain, the only new item that's actually interesting to use in Twilight Princess, but for the most part the game relies heavily on scripted events. But if Twilight Princess took Ocarina's scripted design and ran with it, then Skyward Sword grabbed it and immediately sprinted headlong into a wall. Every new item was treated like an elaborate key for an elaborate lock, and even the combat now locked you in place and focused entirely on following patterns. This game sucks! Fuck you, Nintendo! You're not my real dad! I'm not the only Zelda fan who hated Skyward Sword, and Nintendo clearly noticed and understands the backlash against it. Breath of the Wild rejects all of Skyward Sword's bullshit, and seems to fully embrace, for the first time in 3D Zelda history, the systemic design principles that made the classics so damn good. Enemy encounters are once again driven by AI interactions as opposed to scripting. You can create advantages in combat by playing around with the game's systems and exploring the environment. The hitboxes are hyper-accurate, so good positioning and quick reflexes are once again vital to success. And the items present way more in the way of possibilities. The axe is more like the Zora flippers or the raft, allowing you access to new areas in organic ways, as opposed to the remote control beetle, which exists solely to be flown into remote control beetle-shaped keyholes. Breath of the Wild looks to be a return to form for the series, but Nintendo isn't trumpeting it as such. They're presenting all of these ideas as new and exciting, and that's fine. It's probably the best way to get people excited about a return to the principles of classic Zelda. But at the same time, it kind of seems like they're missing an opportunity, because a lot of the things that have Zelda fans excited about Breath of the Wild, the huge open environment that you can get lost exploring, the interwoven gameplay systems that make the world feel alive, and the fun, varied traversal and combat mechanics, all feature prominently in classic Zelda games that a lot of newer fans might not have played. If you think about it, Zelda is sort of the progenitor of open world games, along with a lot of other genres. This is just Nintendo's attempt to reclaim the crown that they forged. So if you're stoked for Breath of the Wild and all that it offers, and you can't wait to play it, don't. Go pick up a Zelda game that you haven't tried yet, like Majora's Mask, or any of the great Game Boy spin-offs from Capcom, or especially the NES original in Link to the Past, and see if you can't get a taste of what Breath of the Wild is offering. And if you're an old-school Zelda fan, rejoice, because for the first time in a long time, classic Zelda is back. Or, if you're a fan of this video and you want to see more things like it, then hey, I've got a whole bunch lying around in the back room of my channel. If you want to see another game that does some interesting things with the Zelda formula, my video about the level design in Psychonauts might be up your alley. Or if you're looking for another classic series that recently returned to form, I've been talking a lot about the new Hitman. And if you want to see even more videos like these about video games and anime every week forever, click that subscribe button and follow me on Twitter at G0FFThu to stay up to date on what I'm making. Thank you for watching, and thank you especially to the generous, loyal fans who support me on Patreon. This video, which I paid my buddy CJ to edit, literally wouldn't have happened without your help. I say it and I mean it in every video. You guys are awesome. You know what else is awesome? Getting t-shirts shipped straight to your door every month from tblocks.com. T-Blocks is a monthly subscription crate service that sends comfortable, visually appealing t-shirts along with other neat goodies straight to your mailbox for just $9.99 a month plus shipping. This month they sent me a spiffy Silver Age Marvel t-shirt, issue 13 of Thor God of Thunder, and a poster for the second best TV show starring David Duchovny. All of their products are officially licensed, even the video game shirts, which include a number of Nintendo designs. Zelda fans? There are a ton of different theme packs to choose from, so you can tailor your shirt orders entirely to your personal tastes. Plus, they offer a satisfaction guarantee, and unlike other subscription services, you can cancel at any time. T-Blocks is a damn good service, and you can make it even better by entering coupon code MBasement15 at checkout for 15% off your first shirt, which will also help the channel. Bit of a funny coincidence, that. And now that I've done my prerequisite selling out for the month, I can say with confidence that I am Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.